Hello there, Victor Pross speaking to you, anarchist artist. Okay, today I'd like to talk about intellectual blocks towards the ideas of freedom, which means a stateless society when I say freedom. Intellectual blocks that people have when it comes to entertaining ideas of a totally free society, which is to say a stateless society. Now, all types of objections is hurled at the anarchist when he proposes that that the state is in fact a violent institution. It holds a monopoly on the initiation of force. It uses that force to the detriment of all. I can safely say that our lives, all of our lives, is not optimal as it could be, and it's severely diminished, not only in terms of financial diminishment, where 50 to 60% of your income is expropriated, stolen, and devalued because of the Federal Reserve and whatever the Canadian equivalent is, and which is characteristic of other countries as well. When the state holds an exclusive monopoly on the money supply, barring competitors, and it devalues the money supply by inflation. The purchasing power of the dollar has been reduced to 98%. You have it's diminished 98%, which is to say that our lives has been diminished 98%, economically speaking, and that is also intellectually so as well, because of state public schooling indoctrination. State schooling or state indoctrination, let's just call it what it is. I hate using words like education and schooling, because those are legitimate concepts and words and services that are offered when it comes to an actual definition of education and schooling. But state indoctrination, compulsory schooling, is an abysmal failure. We can see the failure of these institutions very clearly, and so it's no wonder that people do have, because of state public schooling and the media at large, with the constant bombardment of propaganda, where people aren't aware of the alternative arguments to a stateless society. Not that they have any excuse any longer, given that we live in the information age. There's a bevy of information and critiques and criticisms and proofs that are advanced about just how damaging government is. Any government, anywhere in the world, for all millennia, so long as there's ever been an institution. Now, there's a lot of intellectual blocks, as I say, that people suffer from when it comes to entertaining ideas of a stateless society, of a totally free society. I mean, to a lot of people, when they listen to the anarchists, they just think that this guy is like a complete loon. I mean, it's just like, is he for real? Are you fucking serious? Like, and there's a certain amount of cognitive dissonance and a very curious amalgam of hostility and bafflement. The very idea. This is how entrenched this idea is. This myth, this leviathan, the state. And if we look at just what the state is, as I've made clear in numerous other videos and along with other anarchists as well, as the state is nothing more than a group of human beings who've arrogated to themselves an exclusive monopoly over the use of force. It's just a small cadre of people who have overwhelming power at their disposal, and they exercise it to the detriment of it all. I mean, can be empirically validated. It's not some grand theory that I'm spinning from my ass. All I have to do is open up your fucking eyes and look at the state of the world and trace back the breadcrumbs to where it all originates from. You'll find that religion and statism are the greatest culprits. So what the hell is the problem with people who have intellectual problems with the ideas of removing this cancer, this blight from society, and having a totally free society? Well, one of those things that people are all wrapped up around and so concerned about and so fearful of, that if what they consider to be their protector, that if the protector was removed, that they would be exposed to what kind of dangers, what kind of one specific danger I will be addressing in this video, what kind of danger that people will feel that they will be exposed to and vulnerable to with the removal of the state. However that state is removed, it fades away in history or is abolished or whatever. That's not an important detail for to the thesis of this video. And I'll tell you what that thing is that people are very fearful of, and that is this: human nature. Oh, dread it. Beware, scary, woo, human nature. Oh, don't you? You see, this is the the anarchist is considered as some like a doughy-eyed, dreamy, glossy-eyed, kumbaya-eyed, defanged Quaker, singing love songs around a campfire, holding hands, and extending the olive branch for the brothers sitting around in the Garden of Eden, wearing their loincloths, and yeah, this is the type of image that is hurled at the anarchist. Now, don't you know about human nature? Would makes a stateless society a society without a state. A human nature would be run rampant, and everybody would be robbing and murdering and killing, and it would be just absolute chaos. And then you have the Christopher Green types who like to use the word anarchy interchangeably with chaos and moral collapse and mayhem. Well, we have to ask the questions, is this really a legitimate objection? The thing about human nature as an intellectual block to entertaining ideas of freedom is that is the mistaken ideas about human nature. Now, I can tell you right up front that I will counter this issue by suggesting and putting it to you as my thesis that human nature, whenever people use that term, it's meant to convey something automatically without qualification or further explanation. Just using the words human nature, we're supposed to understand it automatically as being something depraved and ugly, monstrous and murderous and foul. And you have to ask the question, where the hell is that type of idea come from? Why do people have that automatic emotional knee-jerk reaction to the word, that as soon as you hear human nature, it's meant to convey something foul and beastly? I mean, of course, we are human beings. There are ghastly, evil people. But how is it that throughout all of history, when human beings have exhibited quite contrary behaviors, where we have science and where we have art and where we have charity and where we have love and where we have goodness, that all of that is immediately removed from the human template and from the human experience, and from and as exhibited in ourselves and as we witness in others. Why is that all magically just airbrushed away? All the achievements of human beings, the goodness of human beings. Well, I put it to you that human nature has basically the intellectual contaminants that this word has suffered from ultimately comes from Christianity, I would say. Not just as an exhaustive, inclusive one reason. There's other contributing factors, but Christianity is one of them, insofar as it entertains the idea of original sin. Original sin being our original parents, Adam and Eve, in the Garden of Eden. They ate from the tree of knowledge. It was a forbidden tree. They've transgressed against God's commandments not to eat from that tree. It was defiant behavior. It was going against authority, and ever since then, Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge. They acquired the knowledge of good and evil, and from there all the undoing began because of this original disobedience to God's dictates. Later on, original sin is something that we're just all human beings have been contaminated with it now. That's the whole thing behind baptism, of sprinkling water on the baby to save it. If the baby were to die in infancy, that at least it wouldn't die with its original sin there being intact. Maybe it would just suffer a few million years in purgatory, but I understand that the Catholic Church has canceled purgatory since, so it's just like a balancing act between heaven and hell. And all infant babies are contaminated with this beastly little troll monster, or innate monster, whatever the hell it is, original sin. And that is offered as an explanation for why we live in a world such as we do. For all the evils that there are can be drawn back to Satan and original disobedience to God's dictates and original sin. And that's been offered as one explanation, and you find that this is a very predominant outlook on life, this negative view of original sin, that it's even affected the atheist community. So it just goes to show you that for those who like to believe that they've stripped themselves from any vestiges of religious doctrine, there's a lot of people who haven't quite done it so thoroughly, where it's completely eradicated from their intellectual processes. And then there's another reason. And then we also have, later on in history, we have Sigmund Freud with his theories of consciousness, the ego, the superego, and the id. ID. I know it sounds highfalutin for the non-academic types there, but just bear with me. I'll just put it this way, is that the id is just another little ugly troll monster that is just a secularization of original sin, and that has dominated popular 20th century thought as well. And then you have Darwin with the evolution of the species, the origin of the species, and his investigations in biology. That has also been another contributing factor. It certainly was not Darwin's intention, but it's been bastardized, that thought of well, you know, if we came from monkeys and we're not a part of the divine spark, and we're just a part of the earthbound nature in animals, and then so long as we believe that, the religionists would contend, well, that's why we have such ghastly behavior. If we reduce human beings to animals, we are animals, but as Aristotle said, we are the rational animal. That's subject of another video. But anyway, this is I put it to you though that to reconsider otherwise. That I put it to you that there is no such thing as human nature in the way that it's been presented here. There is no original sin. There is no original virtue, for that matter. We're human beings. We have a volitional consciousness. We have free will. I mean, there's a lot of people who tend to think that free will is just another religious artifact that's to be tossed onto the intellectual trash heap, along with concepts like heaven and hell, angels and God. Free will is also tossed into the trash heap, and that's probably subject of another video. But I submit to you that we do have free will, and which means that we merely have the capacity to commit evil and as to commit good. And I think as extensionally and empirically, that is what you find in the world. You find good people, and you find evil people, and you find evil people who do things in some kind of compartmentalized way, do good things, but are predominantly just very nasty people, and then you find good people doing bad things, but it's not. It is something that is an exception to the character they've usually exhibited, and it's an aberration. So, but we merely have. That's the whole point. Is as though we have free will. We can be good or we could be bad. It's up to us. And the whole idea of good and bad, of course, pertains to the discussion of ethics and morality. And I put it to you that whatever your ideas and theories of morality are, whether they're subjective, objective, or whatever, you would have to say that where choice is removed, there is no there is no discussion of ethics. Ethics applies to choice. And if there is no choice, if our human nature has just been preloaded before our birth, and we have a propensity to be evil regardless of volitional choice because of this original sin, well, you just jettison the questions of morality out of it. So to say that to speak of human nature and to put that forward without and jettisoning morality choice from the scenario, to speak of original sin as being something that's innately foul and bad is a contradiction in terms. It doesn't make any sense. How could something be innately bad that's removed from human choice and a volitional consciousness? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, with all these discussions of human nature as being an obstacle to a stateless society, it's something that perhaps you should rethink again. I hope I provoked some thought in this video regarding it. This is Victor Pross signing out. Anarchist artist, pop goes to culture.